Hello, this is Brian. Today I'm going to talk about perspective shadows, specifically from a point light source. That is specifically different from a sunlight source. So that you can see in this image I have up here, there is a lamp on a little pole. And I've kind of highlighted here as the light actual source. So imagine there's a light bulb there. And the way you figure this out is you need two different sets of lines. So first is the lines from the light source through each of the corners of the top of this box. So we're going to go down to the top of this one and keep on going. And from the top of this one and keep on going. And over here, the top of this one, and you keep on going, and over here, and you keep on going. And the way that a lot of times people kind of explain this is if you don't think of this as a box, think of it as just four, they call them flagpoles or just sticks or whatever you want to call them. So let's figure out the shadow for those four sticks first, and then we'll kind of stitch them all together. So I'm going to change to green now, because the grass on the ground is green, the light is yellow. Let's just kind of use those as metaphors. And then you can see from the bottom of the pole on the ground, then you trace out directions to those same poles, but now you go to the bottom of the pole. So the light source went to the top of the pole, and the base is going to go through the bottom of the pole. So you'll see I go connect over here, and where those two connect, and I didn't quite draw that yellow far enough, but right there is a point. So, oops, I'm drawing on here. That is the shadow of just that one flagpole. The purple, they're all purple. Let's change it to blue for a second. Okay, so that light pole cast a shadow over to here. All right, now let's go to the next one. So I'll do this in the same order. So I'll take this one in front. So here I follow this line over. It goes to the base of this pole, and it continues on, and then it hits this light ray that came from the top of the pole. And so now let's look at that same way. So this new blue pole right here casts a shadow that goes out to this point. So that's the end of that shadow. And actually, I'm going to do these in gray because shadows are kind of gray. All right, so now let's keep on going. So we'll just follow this around. So let's take this green over here. We'll go past over to the base of this purple pole and out till it hits the light ray that came from the top over there. And you can see these start to make little triangles. You know, you can almost fill these in, and every single one of them should make some sort of triangle. So we almost got them all. So let's do the last one. But first, we'll make the shadow of that pole in gray, and it's going behind that. So that's the shadow of that one. And you can see they're kind of spreading out, and it's just the nature of the light source being a point and spreading outwards. So the shadow is from the bottom of the box is spreading outwards. All right, last one. I think you could probably figure this out. If we came along, I'm not even going to trace the line. I'm just going to go from the base. From the base of the lamp, it projected out over to here, and that was the termination of that shadow. And so now I've got these four shadows from just the sticks. So now let's kind of look at this in just kind of, it's almost like connected dots in 3 dimensions. So let's pick a fun color here. And let's start looking at what's connected. So if I took these two poles and strung a rope across the top of those two poles, I would get that one edge. And if I looked at this one and kind of went down over to here and over to here, then we can remember that this point is represented by this shadow. And if this point and this point are connected, then the shadow points, this one and this one, have to be connected. So I'll draw that line. Actually, let me get rid of this first. Draw this line across. And so that aqua color represents the string over on the, I thought I turned off my notifications, but anyway, so now let's go around the top of the box. So let's pick a different color for each one just so we can see what is represented. So this is the pink string going from those two poles. These are the tops of those two poles' shadows. And so if that's connected up here, then these have to be connected just with a straight line there. Again, I don't want those arrows in here. Okay, and then let's go now to the furthest back. Now, technically, we have enough information to make the whole shadow, but let's go through the whole thing because right now we're assuming these are 4 poles with 4 strings connecting the tops of them. So let's connect this one. This will be orange. So that's that point and that point. And if we follow this down, that equals this point and this point. Those two are connected, so these got to be connected by a straight line. And lastly is this edge right here. That's the green edge. If that's connected to these 2 poles, I go down and find the tops of the shadows of those 2 poles is right there and there. And so now I connect those. So this top, now let's just take this for a second further and say, all right, what if this was 4 poles with a roof or a little panel on there? So I'll just fill this in. So imagine you just strung a tarp across 4 poles. So what would the shadow of that be? Well, we connected all 4 of those, which are these 4. And so technically, here, let's do this in gray though, because the shadow is going to be gray. I forgot which one I used, but all right. So again, I got to pay attention to which ones I'm looking at, but it's these 4 points I just connected. So that would be the shadow of this. Notice this shadow is covering that one pole I did under there. And so each time you add these shadow things, they block out some of the key lines. So right now we've got a shadow from this pole going up to that corner. This one, and it should go behind there, but connects to that corner. This one connects over to this corner. And this last one, let me do this a little bit darker, was right here going off, but it's buried by the tarp and it's not going to create another shadow. When 2 shadows overlap, they don't multiply, they just combine. So that shadow is basically, or that edge is gone. Now, I do want to go back here. Let's just redraw these in purple because this looks a little disorienting with the shadows going on top of. All right, so now we've got, this. You can imagine this as a little stool too, or something rather. This would be the shadow. And again, just pointing out, I've only got a shadow of 3 legs. The 4th one is buried in the shadow, so it's not going to create a new shadow. All right, so let's start just filling in some of the sides. So let's say this back panel, and I'm going to do new color. Let's go. So hard to pick a good color sometimes. All right, so this technically, let me do a new layer because I want this to multiply on top. And so I'll do some transparency here just so you can kind of see. So I think, no, I got it. Yeah, okay. So now I'm going to color in this back panel. So imagine this as a little box with clear plexiglass panels of different colors. So I'm now assuming that this top one is like a transparent blue, so we're seeing through there, but that's all fine. So that shadow, if I follow the logic of what I did before, would be this chunk right in here. And so that would cast and add into the shadow one more piece. Now let's, this is going to get a little confusing, I think, with all the colors overlapping, but so this panel right here, if that were a transparent panel, that equals this on the ground. So now you can see that even just with these two back panels, you would create this full shadow. These front panels don't help much in this shadow. So now let's go back to opaque. So let's fill this shadow in. So now I'm going to, oh, I'm on my, oops, come on. So this gets filled in, but I got to erase that and the other layer. And let's fill these other ones in solid. So let's go to this layer. And I think if I do this, oop, that's really messy. Let's just turn that off for a minute. So technically, if this were a solid box, so let's go back into this original layer and fill this in as if it were just a big blue box. So I'm going to pick the same blue, but now I've kind of figured out that this side is not going to be getting any of the light. So it's going to be in shade. And so it should be darker than the top. And the top is getting the most light. So it's going to be the lightest. This side is getting a little bit more glanced light. So it'll probably be somewhere in between the two. So I'll just pick this again and go a little bit darker. Because the sunlight is, or sorry, the light from this lamp post is hitting this. It's just hitting it more directly on the top. So let's actually make this a little bit more extreme. So darken up this side more. I think I can do this. Nope. And go back to this side. Lighten this one up, and then I'll lighten the top up even more. So we went through kind of a long roundabout way of doing this, but in reality, once you kind of start this, you'll get to a point where you see that you have enough information. You don't actually need to figure out all the stuff that's buried. So if I see from this cube, the only parts of the shadow that are visible are coming from this point, and this point, which are this one, and this one. And so really we just need to figure out these front 3 points and then connect the edges to the corner of the box, and then we're done. So we don't need to figure out this point here because it's all buried in the shadow. Now there are times you have to figure it out because it might be something irregular and you need to kind of map out where that line's going. But for cubes, that's basically it. We're done. So now this is, again, this is a point light source. So if you shined a like your light on your camera onto an object, in fact, I want you guys to do this just to test it out and kind of move it around and see how that reacts. So the real key is, let's go to our next layer here because I can show you what I'm talking about. So here I am. I have my phone. I've turned on my light. Now this is not technically a 2-point perspective. This is actually a 3-point perspective, but the same rules apply. So let's go yellow for the light source. In this case, I'm just highlighting. Except for I got to go on a new layer. So these are the rays coming right from the light, and they're hitting the corners of the box. 1, 2, 3. And again, notice I didn't even do the backside. And then they continue on to the ground. And when you're first drawing these, you're not really sure how long they are because you need that point that's directly below on the ground. So here I kind of guessed at it. I think it was about right there. So if I hung a string from my camera and put a little weight on there, it would that would point exactly at the point on the ground. And then from that point, I go through the bottom of each corner of the box and where those two meet. So over here, this went right through the box to that bottom, and then over here to where these meet. And this last one, there's the bottom, and it goes over to here. So then we connect all those and just fill this in. And so you notice that the one kind of thing that's it helps to kind of know what's happening here. Let me turn this off for a second. Is that these two edges are these two shadows. And then this next part is actually the shadow of the poles. So here's the pole going down, and so that's the shadow of the pole. And this pole is kind of buried under there, but that's the shadow of the pole, and they're all connected, so, and filled in opaque, so then this just all gets filled in. And then notice that this side is in shade because the light is not hitting it, and this last edge is kind of right on the edge, so it's a little hard to see what's happening, but it's also in shade. And then notice how bright the top of the box is compared to these sides. So now typically, you can see the shadow casting on this checkerboard thing, that it's not an opaque layer, because you're seeing through the shadow. It's really the absence of light is what's actually happening. So if you think about this in another way, if I turn this light off here, where'd it go? Whoops, sorry. Whoop. If I turn the light off, this is probably what the whole thing would look like wherever it's the shadow is, okay? What really is happening is this light is coming down and lightening everything around this, except for the areas where the light can't get to. And the light can't get to these corners because it's blocked by the box. And so a lot of times when painters paint, they paint the light because that's actually how the real world is working, is the light is what's changing everything. The shadows are absence of light. So, but in saying that, you're saying, but I could still see in there. That's because there's ambient light. There's all kinds of ambient light bouncing around. Even the light that's coming down and hitting around here, some of that is bouncing up and hitting the box and then getting into here. So there's some light that's getting into that shadow area, but it's ambient light. It's not a direct light source. So next class, we're going to talk about the sun's rays, and those are a little bit different in that they're parallel, not from a point. So we'll get into that next week, but mostly I just wanted to explain all this to you guys to start with, and then let's turn these all off. Okay, so now, as I mentioned in class, we worked on this last time, and now I want to add shadows from a light inside this building. So we're going to take the same drawing that we did before and just add to it. So first off, we're going to figure out where the light is. So, and I'm going to turn, there's some of these background layers that are a little bit distracting. So let's see if I can, I think that's the main one here. So I noticed a bunch of you guys when you were working on this assignment, let me go new layer. The concept of getting this diagonal vanishing point right here to make the boxes perspectively cubes and consistent got lost on a few of you guys. So just to recap, what we did is we took the front face of the box is perfectly square. So we started there. And then we have our vanishing point from our original setup, which was over there. And I got my wrong brush here. And then so we snap some lines from the vanishing point. And you don't have to go all the way to the vanishing point, especially if you're drawing with pencil and paper and you have straight edges. In this particular case, this is easier to snap these lines all the way to the vanishing point. Unless I've set up the perspective with the perspective assist. All right, so now I need to find out how deep this box is this way, where this line should be. And that's what that diagonal vanishing point is all about. Now, you could do this on the top or the bottom. And so I'm going to do it on the top this time. I think originally we did it on the bottom of the box. But if I just go to this far corner right there, and let's do that again. Sorry, I accidentally erased it. And this one is not quite, I don't know if I have my perspective still on here, but let's see if I say drawing assist. This one, yeah, is a little bit over. So I just wasn't quite on the edge. So where that crosses, that diagonal, that's the end of the box. And so now I go across, and where I hit this line, then I go down. So that makes a perfect cube in perspective. Now you find that if I did this on the bottom, it should work out the same. So I'll just change the color just so we can see a difference here. Okay, so there's the beginning of that green line. If I go from this corner and go to the diagonal vanishing point, it crosses over right there. So now I'm going to go across, and you see that that actually is exactly the same. So that's what the diagonal vanishing point is all about. And we could check all these boxes. So here, this one, if we take the top again and go to diagonal vanishing point, you'll see that it right there, it hits the back corner, and that tells me how long this side is. Whoops, let's do this again. And then once I've determined that side, then I can just go straight across and straight down once I've hit this edge. So that's what the diagonal vanishing point's all about. All right, that's just a recap. Now let's put a light in here and see what that does. So first step is I'm thinking I might. No, I guess I'll just snap all these lines. I was going to rechange my my guidelines, the edit guides perspective to actually be the light source, but I do actually want it to still be here. So this still is my vanishing point. And sorry, this. Let's get a better color. Okay, so the first step is going to be to put a light up on the ceiling, and I kind of want to judge this a little bit about where I want my shadows to be. So I think if I put it a little bit forward of these boxes, then these shadows will be behind it. If I put the light behind it, then the shadows will come forward, and most of these boxes will all be in shadow. And I kind of wanted some light on the fronts of the boxes, so I think I'm going to put it like somewhere directly above this point. And I'm just going to center it in the room. And so if I look back to my original, let me put the assist on just for a second. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Drawing assist. I could see that this was the center line between the two windows. So I'm going to go up to the roof line. And now, here's my vanishing point. Oops, let's do this. Okay, so that's the center line of the roof. And if I know I want this in front of those boxes, I'll just trace this over to the wall, and then go up the wall till I hit the ceiling, and then go back. So I just made like, I made like a big kind of square in space, and then I'm going to come down. And so that's the center, and this is the point directly below center. And let me erase this other muck here just so I don't get myself in trouble. And I'm just going to make your classic hanging light bulb just to make this more obvious. So in the center of the room here, and we didn't get into circles yet, so I'm not gonna draw a circle. I'll just draw a little square. The plate, and then the light source will be dangling off a wire, and or cable or whatever. We'll give that a little thickness. And let's come down. I'm just trying to think of, yeah, it's probably good. So now I have to turn off the assist to actually draw the light bulb, because it's going to try to make me draw a square light bulb, or I'll just do a new layer. Okay, so the light bulb's going to be something technically here. And this is kind of interesting is if you think about a light bulb as a point light source, there are some light bulbs where you can actually see inside. They're clear and they have a little filament in them. And those cast harsher shadows because it really is coming from one point. But a typical light bulb is frosted all over. So the light is actually technically not coming from one point because some of the light is coming out of here. So it gets scattered a little bit more and so you get softer shadows. So, but we're gonna assume this is a bare bulb, no shade, and it's got a little filament. I'm just gonna kind of color this in yellow to remind ourselves that this is the light. And actually, here, let's do this. We'll do the little filament is actually white. Okay, so now let's start projecting our rays. So the same deal. Let's go. Yellow is going to be our light rays. And so I'm actually going to go to the center of that light bulb and snap some lines from this front box. And I'm going through the corners of the box. And so I'm going to wait for that to snap. And I'm just drawing them a little bit longer, I think, than I need. And then I'll zoom in there when we get to the bottom of this, okay? Okay, so this is the front corner. So this one's like kind of right on the edge. Okay, so now let's zoom in. And now I got to draw, this is the red corners here are the very point directly below the light on the ground. And so now we got to project backwards from this point and go over here, let that snap, and then go through that point until I hit this yellow light ray. And so that's my very first point. And then I got it. Sometimes you have to remember, like, what am I drawing? What am I seeing? And then the problem here is that I don't have the back of the box drawn in, so I've actually got to redraw that just so I can see where those back corners are. So let's go back to our assisted layer. And this one's a little tricky because we don't see much of the box. Where that back edge is a little bit hard, but let's go back to our diagonal vanishing point. That should help us. Okay, so there's the back of the box, and these two edges almost line up. And this should connect out to that corner. Okay, so now we have our corner or bottom ground plane where this box is sitting on. So let's go back to our red. And so now I'm going to go through this corner. I'm waiting for it to snap and project it. So if I looked up, that's the yellow ray. And if I come over here, I see that it's actually not very far to that point, which is right there. And then this back one here, there's the base. And so I'm going to go through there and project out till I hit it, which is right there. And then the last one is over here. Go through that corner out to the light ray. And that's on the, this is underneath. But so this crossed two light rays, so you have to be a little bit careful. We got the first one as, what was that? Don't do this. That's not the correct light ray. We already got that light ray. So you have to kind of pay attention and go, okay, so this one pole is the top, there's the bottom, there's the light ray coming down. These two meet over here. And that's why I'm drawing these little points on here, because they're going to help you establish which are the correct lines to go to. Now, these last two I'm going to do, but you're going to see that they're buried by the box, so you won't see the shadow of these two guys. So first one is right there, and the second one is right over there. And now we got to connect all those 4 points. And the trick here is that since this light is coming down and it's projecting a shadow of this, effectively the top of the box in this case, these are still parallel lines. So these will still go horizontally across, and these will still go to the vanishing point, even in the shadow. So let's go back and do that. So let's go back to assisted layer, and now I'll do the shadow in black. So these two, let me put this one on top. Come on. No, get up there, because it's drawing under the other ones. So those two are connected, and then technically, if I went from this guy over to that guy, you'll see there's this little tiny triangle in here. And this is pretty common, is don't forget the shadow of the stick itself is casting this little piece of red here. So the shadow's always got to connect to the corners of the box. And then lastly, if these two go across, you'll see that this now is all behind the box. And so the rest of this I don't have to draw. So the shadow from this first piece is, let's see if I can do this. Now I wouldn't do these in this harsh of a color, but okay, so here's that little front triangle that we got to make sure we include in the shadow of our box. So there's the first one. All right, so that one's a little confusing just because the shadows on this edge is pretty close in line. But let's do one of these other ones. So things are going to get a little tricky when we get to these walls. But let's do this big crate here. So same tops to tops, bottoms to bottoms. So let's get back to our yellow rays, and I'm going to project from the light bulb through these upper corners. And I'm going through the back one. Now through the front corner. And, oops, come on. So again, just looking at the tops of the edges of this box. Now, I don't actually think I need this last one in here. It's hidden behind underneath that one, but let's go ahead and draw it in. All right, so now let's project this shadow. We need the bottom now, so let's go back to our red. And we're going to go from the bottom of this one through right to there. And again, this is happening inside the box, so this is not going to cast a shadow right here. But that's my first point. The next point is over here, and if I look at the light rays and kind of go back up and go, okay, this is the correct one, this one. So that's that second one. That far back corner, I don't have the back of the box drawn, so I got to redraw this in. So it's right there. And so now get over there. And I got to, again, make sure I'm going to the right line, not to this one, but to this one. And now let's start connecting some of these dots. And you'll see that, is that my assisted layer? Yeah. Let's go back to black. We need this first edge, which is this one. And that should be along the red. And it's trying to snap this straight. So that's that. And then this point and that point need to be connected. But since they're parallel, that should just actually go back to my central vanishing point. And this is actually all the shadow I need from this box right now. But you'll see that this line hit this box right there. So I've got a little bit of a problem. But let's keep on going. I'll get back to that maybe. So let's fill this in. So I got to complete the triangle and then drop some color in there. Okay, so 2 boxes down. Now we got some tricky things coming up here, because one of them is this box is going to cast a shadow up the wall. And it seems a little daunting at first, but it's actually pretty simple. So first step is let's make sure somewhere in one of these layers I think I have all the, is it this one? Yeah, so I think this layer shows me that box transparent. No, let's just draw it again, because where did I just do that? Here. So, and I'm going to turn this layer down a little bit so those shadows are a little bit see-through. Okay. And let me draw the 4 posts on this box, because it's a little bit hard to see because it's behind all these, but that's why you kind of save your original drawing layers and stuff. Okay, so that is going to be assisted. And again, in case anybody's wondering, I'm using Procreate, but you can do this in any program. All right, so let's go through bottoms first. Actually, no, we're going to redraw the box. Okay, so I'm just drawing this over and this down, those met there, and then back. So that's the front edge of the box. And then we'll go over and back. And so this should be the back edge of the box, meeting about right there. And then let's just, for fun, make all these verticals a little fatter. So these are the 4 sticks. And again, just ignore that box in the front right now. It's just in the way, but we could still do this. So now let's go back to our light rays and make those back skinny again. And all right, so we're going to go through the top of the box. And we'll start in this back corner. We'll go way out. And you'll see the further away from the light source you get, the longer those shadows become. Come on. Snap. Ooh, well, that was weird. Snap. Okay. So let's go way out here. You'll see, actually, I don't need these as long because it's going to crawl up the wall, but let's just keep on going. Okay, now you can see also, I got a whole bunch of yellow lines that are getting cluttered, so I got to really pay attention to which ones are the correct lines. So I probably should have done this on a new layer and just turned that old one off because we don't need, once we've found those other shadows, we don't necessarily need the light rays anymore. Okay, so let's do the front first. And so from our point on the ground to this first corner, I'm going to go off and I'm kind of looking up at the top of this purple pole to see which light ray I'm looking at. And I'm going to actually end it right at the light ray just so I don't get confused. Okay, so that's the first point. Let's go to this other back corner, and I could see my kind of wandering around here a little bit in my light. So this goes to this one, which is way back there. And now here's where we get tricky. So sometimes when you're doing this, it's good to figure out what's the light, what would the shadow look like if there were no wall, and then what would it look like with the wall. And so right now I'm just kind of assuming that wall's not there just to keep on our trajectory. Okay, so there's our 4 points. So then if I connected these and that, and this and that, that's a little bit off, but yeah, that's weird. So this should be somewhere over there. Also, just while I'm doing this, you can see there's a discrepancy happening here where all these don't meet up. And so the real thing about this is, though, the shadows are not as important as the object. So spend all your time getting the object right, and then the shadows can be fudged a little bit. Okay, let's just deal with this one first little piece right here because the other side's actually back up behind the box. Okay, so here's the trick: is once I'm gonna forget about the molding for right now, but if I follow this red line, I'll do it in blue. This red line goes along and it hits the wall. And again, I'm going to ignore the molding, which pops out a little bit. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit further. And as soon as I hit the wall, then I'm going to go up the wall until I hit the light ray. And where that is, where those two intersect, that's now the top shadow of the box. And that also, I could do this back one. So that light ray goes along, except for I don't have the wall, so I got to draw that in there, and then that goes up, and that's on the back wall now, but that's okay. And that goes up to here, right there. You'll see if I connect those two, it should go to the vanishing point. And then again, there's some shadow that's going on behind here, but I can't see any of it because it's buried behind the box. And so all I need is this front little piece right here. So let's go back to our shadow layer, this one. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just remap out the edges of what the actual shadow, visible shadow will be. And here I'm going to just do something a little tricky. I'm going to go up and across because that molding is actually has a little bit of thickness. You can skip that part. And over, and then this little edge of the windowsill, I don't think is getting caught by the shadow. And once I've kind of created all this, hopefully if I did it with no leaks, I can just drop color into it. And some of it, that little yellow line is, let's cover that over. Shoot, close enough. All right, so there's those shadows. And now, last tricky thing I'm going to do. So we'd have shadows over on this other side too. We have some shadows coming from the door and stuff, but I want to show you this shadow of this little box on top of this other box because that's going to cast its own shadow, and that's going to get a little tricky. But actually, before we do that, let's quickly do the door jamb because this will make this really, let's see, that's the assisted layer. I'm making too many layers, but also I'm just going over here because it's not all cluttered up with rays. Okay, so I'm going to go through this little corner point over to the door, and then I'm going to go down to the ground to my red and go from that center point over to this door frame. And I thought this was going to be in front of it, but I guess it's going to be behind. So then that means that the light is hitting this, all of this door except for this little top edge. And so I think where, let's see, how do I do this? So technically, I think if I extend this door out till it hits that light ray and then extend this up till it hits this, that would be the little point where the light would begin, and then I can just drag this across to that point, and where it this is where it hits this edge, then I just go diagonally back to the corner, and so then this would be a little bit of a shadow on top. Oh, actually, I'm going to do this on my shadow layer because here's where that transparency is going to help. And we're going to do some other box assignments where we're doing something very similar to this. Okay, so theoretically, I should just be able to dump. There we go. So that's that little bit of light getting onto the door and everything, but not underneath that door frame. All right, so, and this big box, a lot of times, like this door is going to be in the way. So what we have to actually kind of do is figure out what would this shadow be on the wall if there was no door there. And so that's going to go kind of off. I'm just kind of estimating from the, looking at the red. And then it would go up, and then this light ray would come down from the light. And so it would be something like this on the wall. So that little piece of it right there would be important. Now we figure out what it looks like on the door. So we would extend this further over to the door and then go up. And then this will go further, like somewhere over here. And then we'll go straight across until you hit the corner and then just connect those 2 points. It'll go kind of diagonally across here. So it's going to make kind of a weird little jiggity jag up over the corner of that door frame. And let me fill that in. I didn't do it totally accurately, but it would look something like this. So this will be one connected line towards that red point. Then it will go all the way up to here. And it will go along this little piece of the, oh, I did the wrong connection. It'll go along this little piece of the molding. And then, sorry, it'll connect these 2 points together. And then across and down. And this is a little bit advanced, so if you don't get this, I'm okay with that. Let's fill this in. Yeah, I think that's all we need there. And then the shadow of the person also, let's just do that real quick. I'm just going to kind of do it, eyeball it a little bit. But if we kind of think of them as almost leaning up against this wall, then you can see that because this light source is from the ground point is coming over, let's just kind of look at the edge of them. It's going to be going out to either side. So there's going to be a little bit of shadow on both sides of this person, which is a little weird. And then from the top, the light's going to not, it's going to go a little bit behind him. So effectively, I'm just going to just eyeball this in, but let's turn off the assist for a minute because this guy, and let's make this fatter. So it would be kind of like you took this character, made him a little bit wider than he is, and then pushed it down a little bit. And maybe there's a little shadow under here. Actually, there should be. But the light is kind of coming in towards the legs, so I don't think you'll see shadow on the inside of the legs. And this is, like I said, just because they're up against the leaning up against the wall. Probably some here. So something like that. All right, lastly is the little box. And little box on top of the other boxes. So let's do, like I said, I'm going to turn off a bunch of this extra stuff for now. I think I can do this. Yeah, I think this will work. And then we'll be done. And so this is your homework, is to go back to your original boxes in the room, add the light, and add the shadows. All right, so this one gets a little tricky too, but what I always do is kind of just, if you start thinking about it logically, it's like, okay, I know how to do something that's resting on the ground, and I have this box that's basically floating in the air if I ignore the box below it. But I can, let's see what's on this layer. Let's turn on assist. I can make that box technically bigger. So I'm gonna draw this as if it were a bigger box that goes all the way to the ground. Now I don't care about it being a perfect cube from the front anymore because it's gonna go all the way down. And right here I'm like, well, where do I end this? If you want to be accurate, then what you can do is it's too fat. Take one of these edges, anyone, and you go over to either edge. Let's go this one. We'll go down and across, and you'll see that was the edge up here. So then this should go all the way down to here, and then back in perspective, and where these cross. Sorry, these are so fat back here, but okay, so now this is technically, we got rid of the lower box, and I wonder if I can turn that down. Where's my inking layer? There we go. I'm just going to turn the opacity on that layer down just so you can see a little bit better. And we are on this layer, and let's draw back in the top of this box. Okay, so now let's figure out the shadow for this big box, and so I'll keep the red just for the floor because we were doing that before. So I'm gonna just keep on going over. So this goes through the bottom of each edge of the box. And like I said, I'm just going to kind of punch this out. It's going to hit the wall and go up, crawl up the wall also. But let's first get this going. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one. Right there. All right, and then we're going to go from our light source, which is up here from the top of all 4 corners of this box. And so if I go down over, cross over, about right there, zoom in. I just need the light in there, so I can only zoom in so far. Next one is this front corner, and if I kind of eyeball down, it's this one right there. Oh, maybe this won't go up the wall. And then this corner goes over to this one. And last corner, this goes to, I think this one, down over, yeah. So it almost hit the wall, but it doesn't. So yours, if it does, then you just do that. You go up the wall until it hits the light ray. But let's connect all the dots then. So I'm going to turn back on my other shadow layer because these are going to add up together. And so this shadow and this new shadow will just add, they won't multiply. So I'm going to just do it on the same layer. So let's do this first top corner. Actually, here, I'm just going to freehand this first, and then I'll ink it in. So if we look at these points, there's one there. This one crosses that one there. There is, let's see, this one, yeah, is there. And far one was right there. So if I connect these together, I'll start to get this. I need this little edge right there too. So that's the extra piece that's going to be added onto this. So now let's go back to our actual shadow layer and add that in. So first step is we're going to add this little stretch right there, and I don't see, oh, it is there, okay. And then this is going to go across in perspective. Oh, I think I turned off my assist. Aye. Okay, so from here to here, this should just go straight across, and actually this should be, let's put this below. It'll be easier to see what we're doing. And then this should just go straight across over to this guy, except for I went too far. And I think this is all in the same layer, so I think I can just dump this into here. And those light rays are on top of there. But you'll see that now the, turn that off, turn this off. So there's the shadows of those boxes. And then technically also there'd be a little shadow under these windows. And these are things that you can kind of just fake in, I think. And then something similar that's happening over in the door frame would be on these window frames. And I think I can, because this is further away, if I just drew one line through the corner and met up. Oh, I see, I would have to find. Yeah, I'm just gonna I'm gonna look at that side and go, okay, it's not this, the door height is the same and the light height is the same. So then technically I should get a little short shadow there and then just connect this to the top. corner and then go across, and let's dump some black in there. Oh, and if you are using Procreate, if you just drag from the corner where the colors are and drop it into an enclosed shape, so drag from the little color dot icon in the upper right hand corner and drag. I didn't know that. It wasn't documented clearly at first. But that's a very handy trick for filling in large areas. So like, for example, if I went back to my, if I could find it, the ink layer, this one. If I did this properly, and this may not work, I should be able to pick a, let's just pick a light color. Yeah, so you can see this kind of broke through some of those, the door frames and stuff, but it's almost there. So you just have to be really careful to ink in properly. The other thing is you can drag it on there and then wait and then drag left and right, and that changes the threshold. And you could see that if I go too far over to the right, it starts filling in more and more. But if I drag it further over, I almost got everything. Anyway, that's an easy way to quickly add color. Like, for example, on this ceiling here, I think these are all mostly individual, so I'd have to do them one by one. But maybe I want different different colors on every other board, so then I could do that. But all right, so I think I'm going to stop there. So this is a point light source. Next class, I will do a parallel light source from the sun, but this I think will get us going. So thanks for watching.